So as we begin, let us deepen. Today we were letter writing, so we're writing a letter that will come back to you late in the year. We write essentially our heart's desire, but we're going to do this in several stages. So the first stage here is really simple. You just going to write down what you want. It's kind of like simple. What do you want? What's on the surface or what's on present for you at this moment? And you'll write that down. Please don't use both sides of the page, just one side for this, because there's more. So, if you'll do that, I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Just let yourself write what you want.
Choose the way things go, I would choose peace and love, and so and so and so and so and so and so. If I could choose how life would be, I'd choose that you and I'd be free. We'd be free. We'd be free. Paint the way things are, I'd paint perspective near and far, near and far, near and far. 'Cause who we are is who we are, and that's the way it ought to be. Every soul is like a star that wants to shine and to be free. If I could make all understand, if I could place we hand in hand, hand in hand, understand. If I could write the whole darned truth, I would have started in my youth, in my youth, in my youth. What we could do, if we could do the things we can. Oh, what we could be, if we could come to understand. We can, if we will, behold miracles. could do, if we could do the things we can. Oh, what we could be, if we could come to understand. We can, if we will, behold miracles still, if we know from the start. We can't control from the heart, from the heart, from the heart. If I decided what was real, if I could guide a soul to feel compassion, would be in fashion. Ooh.
Thank you. If you haven't finished, that's okay. We're not going to deal with that much anyway, so we're going to move on. What I'd like you to do now is, now that you've written down what you want, and we have our wants, right? They're usually an answer to something else, really. We want something because of something else. I was just looking at my list. I got mine back about the same time you did, and I looked at it, and I was kind of disappointed. I was batting about 200, which for those of you who, that would be like 2 out of 10 came through as I wanted them to. And I started to think that perhaps we might make this letter more meaningful, more purposeful, if we changed it somewhat, rather than a wish list of what I'd like to see happen this year, that we went a little deeper. Now, most of my list, and maybe if you've done this in the past, and you've noticed that your list really comes out of lack, or at least I'll speak for myself. So this lack, it wasn't, I didn't write down, I don't want to feel poor, but I said, here's what I'd like this amount of income, I'd like this, etc., that sort of thing. But the reason I wanted that was because I was feeling this. Are you with me? So that's really, in truth, the motivation behind the things I put at the end on the paper were really out of lack. And so we're not coming at it exactly the right way, I think, when we do it that way. And essentially what we really want is what's underneath that. Now, let's say we'll come back to the money thing. Like in my case, I want the money so that I'll feel successful. So I want that sense of pride or feel good about myself kind of thing. I want it so that I'll feel secure, and I want it because I've been told I wanted it all my life, right? There's something underneath it. I'm trying to fulfill somebody else's fantasy about how to live life, really, in part. So if you look at your list, if you look at what you've put down there, what I'd really like you to do right now is to look at it and see what you really want. Because what you really want is what we're really after. I want to read you a quote from the Upanishads, ancient text out of India. It says, "You are what your deepest desire is. As your desire is, so is your intention. As your intention is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny." So we're looking now for the deepest desires. And we want to go to that place now. If you'll take a few moments, you can contemplate what you've written down and see. One way to do it is to see what you're running, what these are a cure for, what these are a correction for. So using the case of money, a sense of not having enough or not being secure, not feeling secure enough, then I would like to have more, right? So maybe what I'd really like is to feel secure. Does that make sense? So look on your paper, see what you see. We'll come back in a minute. So we've had a chance. It may not be the absolute rock bottom, and it is a little. Sometimes it's a little shifty down at those levels. But essentially, what you're looking for is the core of what your life is about. Essentially, what is it you're really looking to have be true for you in this lifetime? So, if you have a sense of that, then this next phase should be fun. Because what we're going to do now is imagine what it would be like to be already fully embodying or experiencing that which your heart's deepest desire is. So we'll come back to my simple example about money. If it was about security, then I would, in this next phase, what I'd like you to do is embody the ideal of security, however that comes, however it would feel to you, where you would feel it in your body, how you would picture it out in the world, what you would do, what you would say, the whole vibratory experience, the whole visual experience, the doing, the words that would go with it, as many ways as you can anchor the outcome that you really, really want. Not just the one that's popped up first, but the one you really, really want. Whatever you can do to anchor that in this moment, I ask you to do it. So we'll take about 5 minutes, and we're just going to play with that. You can start by, we're going to start by relaxing a little bit, and then just let your imagination go crazy. And if you go, I don't have any imagination, then imagine you have imagination. Okay? So, here we go. So let's relax the body. I'm going to relax here. We're going to start with a fresh slate. It's nothing, as little as we can carry from the past into this moment, we do. So we just let go of the past and let yourself rest into this moment. So paying attention to the breath, feeling the breath as it comes and goes, like it was important, like this very breath was important. And that as you breathe it, you become more quiet and more still. And the breath becomes longer and smoother. We shift from thinking into being. Okay, now as we get down into the quietude and the mind begins to shift gears, let us now imagine your true heart's desire. And when you can name it, now we're in the claiming it, so you're just going to be it. That being state has always been available, and today we do it. So you may use a word or two. Visualize an image. Feel in the body what it feels like. Imagine what you would be doing. So now if the experience is at a 5 out of 10, see if you can bring it up to a 7. Amplify it. And if you're at a 7 now, see if you can get it to a 9. Use your will and intention now to bring it to at least a 9. This is your world, your way. Okay. Now, if you would use the other side of your paper to write what it would be like, what you vision this year to be about from that place. before I forget, be sure and put your own address on the outside of the envelope so that we can send it back to you. There's a basket out in the lobby. You can place it in when you're done. If you don't have to be finished at this moment, you can come back to it and write some more. If you really want, you can take it home and bring it back. And we'll send it to you in about 9 or 10 months. See what happens. So, as Anna was saying earlier, one of our mission statement is we are awakening to our divine nature through love, service, and personal transformation. Today we're talking about love, and it's also essentially what we're trying to do with this letter writing is to give ourselves a love letter that we pick up later in the year that's mailed back to us. Tim was going to sing, I'm going to sit right down and write myself a letter. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what happened to that idea, but it was a good one anyway. But here's how I think we can get there the best, using love as a method of transformation. So, let me start with this background thought, that essentially the I, the one that keeps saying I and has our preferences and wants what we want and don't like some things and prefer the world was one way rather than the other. This I is a small part of who we are. It's not the biggest part. The soul or the presence or the being of who we are is a much grander, bigger thing than this I. This I going through this life is going through a series of transformations as it unfolds, and sometimes the lessons that the I learn come with a great deal of discomfort. And it's like a little rascal that needs to be worked on. Now, I say this, all of us have pain, and I don't want to say that all pain is a result of your bad karma or your something you did wrong, but I do believe that this little rascal is transformed by everything that happens to it if we come to it with love. That we can take whatever is happening or has happened to us, and if we can love inside that experience, then we transform the little rascal into something more like the rest of you, more like the greater part of you. And so that greater part of you has more chances for expression in this world. And the method for doing that is to love whatever arises. There was a book that one of the prayer chaplains gave me. It's a book that basically says that. That's the title, Love Whatever Arises. Love whatever arises. And in the book he explains essentially that if you're upset, love that. If you're happy, love that. If you're confused, love that. If you're clear and on purpose, love that. And it takes you to the next step in the evolution of this little rascal, right? If you can love whatever is happening, because the whole of life is a journey helping this little rascal become the one presence and the one power, so that God can be made manifest where you stand, evident where you stand, alive and well and influencing the world where you stand. And so the trick for that is to love whatever is arising. So, easy for you to say, bucko, right? Well, there's a trick to it, really, because many times when you're upset, you just can't, I'm not willing or I'm not able, and I think this is so wrong, how can I love this, right? That's how we feel. So when you feel like that, then you love yourself for feeling like that. So you take yourself back one again. It's like that old thing, if you don't have imagination, imagine you have imagination. If you can't love where you are because you can't love yourself, then love where you are that you can't love yourself. and just keep stepping back until you get perspective on what's happening, and that you can love. And so you come to with your whole self to every moment as best you can to bring love to it. And when that's not good enough, then you step back and you give love to the fact that you can't do it. Right? It's a no-lose proposition. Anybody want a no-lose proposition in life? I mean, how many of those are there? Really? Just whatever is happening, you love that. So the method is really just to keep your heart open to the best of your ability, no matter what's happening, and to find love in that situation. Now, if you're really upset with somebody, and you yell at them, and you're embarrassed and disappointed in yourself, at that point where you seem least lovable to yourself, turns out to be the point at which you need the most love. Is that not true? To heal that situation, you need to love yourself to be okay, to move on to the next step. If you're in constant condemnation for yourself, you can't get to the next step. You're stuck. So even when you've been the worst rascal you have been for a week, that's when you need to love yourself. And like little rascals, they need love. They're rascals because they don't love themselves or someone else. Is that right? Isn't that what our little rascals do? When the I is disagreeable and angry and frustrated with everybody, is that when we need to be criticized the most? Or is that when they need to be loved? So this is a counter-instinctual for many of us, because we think when we're bad, we should be punished. But in this way of transformation, it's not about correcting your behavior, it's about transformation, which is far more valuable than just getting it right the next time. It's also been my experience, I don't know about you, but let's use that example of yelled at somebody, and I yell at myself for yelling at them, then I'm even more likely the next time encountered by the same thing to yell again, right? Because now it's yelling is telling yelling to stop yelling, which is yelling, right? So I'm practicing yelling instead of not yelling. So the outcome isn't improved by my yelling, it just gets worse. And if it doesn't come out my mouth, it shakes out my body somewhere. It's not healthy. The body will be most receptive, most happy, most healthy in a sea of love versus a sea of criticism. The mind will find its new equilibrium at a higher level if you're in a state of love versus a state of criticism. Right? If it was somebody else other than you, wouldn't that be right? Maybe you don't want to hold that for yourself because you don't want to give yourself carte blanche to be the little rascal that you are. Don't worry. You're going to be the little rascal you are anyway. So just love yourself and allow that to unfold through the experiences of life into a deeper and richer and ever improving self, not from the whip, but from the carrot. And to hold that place. Now, to do that, you need to be able to energetically move yourself to love, right? You need to be able to say to yourself, I love you. You need to be able to say to the circumstances, I love you. To the pain, I love you. To the anger, I love you. To say it, to where the affirmation you hear the most in your head is I love you. And the feeling you get most in your body is love. This is the pathway to transformation. The other one is just correction. Transformation is taking lead and making it into gold. not making it into a different shape of lead. This is where we're headed. This is what we practice loving ourselves for, is that so that we might unfold the divinity that is in us, that is us, and let it be made manifest as us by loving ourselves. So, let's do a little practice with the heart. So you know where you want to go now with your heart's desire on a sheet of paper, where you're headed. Let's start with that. Start imagining you are already there. And let your breath be your guide again. And this time we breathe into the heart space in the center of the chest. And that heart space grows with the energy of attention and the breath. And in essence, you are your heart's desire. So open your heart. That is who you are. Now begin to remember something that you have not been holding love around, and see if you can give love to that. It could be something that happened to you or something you did, a thing, a feeling, an experience, whatever it is. Just see if you can now love what arises as you think about it. And if you can't love it directly, then love yourself for not being able to love it directly. Let this be a practice for the year 2019. Whatever arises, whatever shape, whatever feeling, whatever state, whatever happens, love that. And let yourself be a beacon of love to yourself and the world around you. And so it is. So, I just want to say one of the fun things we have been doing over the last decade is we've been doing in-home study groups. They're not really much about study. They're more about cookies and conversation than they are about study. I was talking with somebody who said, you know, we didn't like the last book you did, but we had the best group we've ever had. And And that's really the purpose. The book is it's a conversation starter. But what we're really doing is exploring our own spirituality in the company of good people. So if you're not in a group, I really suggest that you do. We will have tables out next week in which you can come and sign up to join a group. But we need about a handful of new people to hold a space in their home for this. So if you're interested, there's a table out there to sign up for that. And then we'll give you the information how to do it. We'll coach you right through it. You will not be out there by yourself. And as a matter of fact, you probably already know how to do it because you've already been to a dinner party at somebody's house once in your life. So that's kind of how you do it without the food and with the book. And the book we're going to do this next time is called The Gospel of Thomas. Now, the Gospel of Thomas didn't make it into the canonical Bible. As a matter of fact, it was kind of like kicked out, and most of the copies were destroyed, so we didn't have a full copy of the Gospel of Thomas until about 1945, when this shepherd boy finds this big urn in Nagamati in the desert, and in that is a bunch of books that hadn't been seen for a very long time, and that in there was the Gospel of Thomas. And of course, the Gospel of Thomas comes from a different mindset than the Gospels that are in the canonical Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And so, of course, we want to know what they were saying back then, right? So we're going to read that. It's a bunch of sayings. It's not a narrative like the other Gospels. It's more just the sayings. And some of them are a little wacky. But we like wacky, don't we? Like I said, it's a conversation starter. So I think you'll like it. It's something I've always wanted to spend more time with, so you may be just indulging me, but I think you might like it as well. So anyway, sign up if you're willing and think you at least might be interested in hosting. Next week, you'll get a chance to sign up for groups that already exist and for those new groups of the people who just started today. And that's the book study. Sometimes those groups become permanent. Everybody goes, I like you. Gosh, you have something interesting to say. How strange and wonderful. Let's stay together. It's like dating. Sometimes it works. Okay, Mimi's got an announcement for you too.